Earth has entered the next century, the virtual century, a dark space age in both politics and culture. Humanity, having changed their focus to space, has long outdeveloped Earth's civilization. The Syndicates still grounded on the planet beware their space counterpart. During a ruins investigation, the Syndicate, DN, uncovered a hidden civilization that contained technology that far surpassed anything on Earth. Their ideals remained corrupt, hiding this technology, yet using it to produce weapons, these human-like machines called virtual roids. However, these machines proved difficult to control for ordinary people. Only those who are virtual positive could handle its awesome power. In order to search for these new types, DN developed a video game called Virtual On to find individuals who are virtual positive. The controls of the game reflect the inner machinations of the machine, but the human experiments don't know this. All of a sudden, the central computer at the test complex becomes self-aware and goes awry, rewriting its own directive to destroy civilization using the sun cannon present on the moon. Players who are virtual positive are forced to participate in an operation to defeat the rogue AI. The series shares this narrative for the most part, taking place in a virtual world and the conflicts that occur within it. But if you want to survive in the virtual world, you need to know how to virtual on. The first game simply titled Cyber Troopers Virtual On, but later the subtitle Operation Moongate was added to at least differentiate it from its more known sequel. There's a few ports of the original game, and I settled with the Japan exclusive PS2 re-release. From what I hear, the Sega Saturn port has a few graphical issues, and its control scheme is rather limited, with the Saturn's controller only having a D-pad and all. In the arcades, they use a specialized twin stick, and it is possible to get a portable version of one of these. Unfortunately, I don't have the money for it. The twin stick controls translate fairly well into the DualShock layout, so that's what I'll be using as always. Virtual On is extremely execution demanding. To start with the controls, aiming is done automatically in the 6-mover machine independent of the camera following. Quite similar to classic Armored Core to put it simply. The trigger buttons attack with a corresponding weapon, either right weapon, center weapon, or left weapon, commonly with the right weapon being your main and your left weapon being the strongest attack. The bars indicate the ammo/recharge for your weapons. Lastly, there's a designated button to dash, but this is where the similarities end. Virtual On makes complex use of your twin sticks, as you need to move both in the same direction to move slightly faster. Moving one stick up and the other down turns you in place. By pulling both sticks outwards you can jump, and by pushing both sticks inwards you can crouch, or guard at melee range. The method of play fully immerses you in the pilot seat, emphasizing the immense amount of control you have over your machine. The arena fighting genre is all about combining independent actions to form a new action. For example, doing a dash attack also reorients the camera back on your opponent, and jumping does this as well. With the basic abilities I've outlined, some of you may already imagine how the game is played. Dash attack a lot, jump here and there, and shoot to overwhelm your opponent. However, the downside to dash attacks is that your machine's bullets hone where your opponent last was before you fired. And jumping is rather floaty, leaving you suspended in the air for a long time. If both players are dash attacking, then neither are really hitting each other, and whoever is jumping recklessly is an easy target. Furthermore, both actions are extremely slow coming to a stop, preventing you from immediately moving after committing an attack. These aren't a one-size-fits-all solution to battle, which is really impressive for one of the first games developed in 3D, and a fast-paced one at that. But among these actions there's one I left out. By pushing both sticks inwards you can crouch. Crouching while in the air allows you to cancel your jump, a jump cancel. And don't forget that jumping relocks the camera back onto your opponent. This creates a new method of play that I don't think was completely intended by the developers, as the computer opponent doesn't move in the advanced manner the player can, sticking towards dash attacking and jumping here and there. Jump canceling is your primary camera controlling tool that cuts out the middleman between aiming and needing to turn. The combined action keeps your hands comfortable around the controller so your thumb isn't moving back and forth between the analog stick and face buttons, which is important for these types of games where speed and precision is valued. It is possible to switch around the control scheme though, if it proves a bit too cumbersome. The game also allows you to use a portable twin stick, which came packaged with the Sega Saturn port, and was able to be reused in the PS2 release. Against other players, this complexity and nuance in movement and execution is more apparent. Both players mix up the way they're able to move to land a solid shot, to capitalize on the advantage before returning back to a neutral space to do it all over again. all in a timely manner as matches are only about a minute long. One thing you won't see are combos, and I think that's for the best. While there is a melee attack, they're only about a single hit and stagger your opponent to the ground with iframe. The lack of close quarters combat per se prevents aggressive playing. You can't match your way to victory. Every machine has their own game plan of what they want to achieve within the match. From playing hit and run or remaining at a safe shooting distance, even getting the life lead timeout is a viable strategy for some. The cast of 8 characters all feel vastly different to play with their own variations of shooting and small quirks that fit their design. To briefly talk about their designs, they were done by Hajime Katoki. This is the second game I think I've seen where the artist is put front and center on the title screen, as if he made the whole thing. I'd probably do the same for getting such eye-catching designs. He's famously known for creating various Gundams, such as the Endless Waltz redesigns and Prelisnot's EMP mech suits. He's an eye for iconography while also capturing the realistic bulkiness of robots. No one can mistake the wings on Wing Gundam Zero or the horn present on Unicorn Gundam, likewise with Virtual 1. Just one look at Timjin's head and you know you've seen it somewhere before, or rather, Fei Yin's, as she's often parodied in other female designs. A Sega Saturn is incorporated on the back of all the mechs, and during battle you can see bits and pieces of your machine's plating come off, showing their inner detail. It shows how deeply they thought about these machines being functional in the real world, although that Sega Saturn would probably be the largest console to ever exist. There was nothing like this game at the time, hence why it became an instant cult classic. In current year, this game is still polished, fair, and fun. Finding information on the arcade scene back in the day is difficult, but I have no doubts this game had a strong competitive scene back then. The home ports of Virtual 1 stayed entirely faithful to its arcade counterpart. Aside from local co-op, there aren't any extra modes that really shake things up. The PS2 re-release has Assault mode, which is arcade mode but you can only use melee attacks, and Chibi mode, which is arcade mode but you have big heads. Nothing groundbreaking, but at least they tried. The main attraction is arcade mode, which is made up of 9 stages, with the first stage being extremely easy. I imagine it was created this way to get the players familiar with the controls since it was so different than what was made at the time. Timjin here barely does anything, so it functions as an improv training mode, until stage 2 where the computer actually starts attacking. Arcade mode also has slight variation depending on how fast or slow you get through each match. Going slow gives you a penalty match, and the reason I say penalty is because a player taking this long still isn't used to the game's control. You fight a secret boss that only appears if you take longer than 5 minutes, I believe. Jaguar Rondi acts as a sort of roadblock at the halfway point of the game, being the mid-boss of the game that's tanky and hits hard. He engages in a bit of tomfoolery as each time you lose and continue against him, he gets smaller and smaller, like really small, taunting you wasting your quarters. At the halfway point, your assessment is reviewed before you're thrusted into the real deal in space. You face the last of the playable cast before facing the final boss, Zegrat, a hulking tank that pretty much nullifies all of your attacks until he temporarily transforms into a Super Saiyan to fire his laser cannon. It's sacrilege to attack someone in the middle of their transformation, but that's how you defeat this boss, and he doesn't slouch in his weakened form for long, so you have to put your skills to the test in order to defeat him. Since he's so tanky, it's easy for the timer to run out. If your HP is lower, then you get the usual game over where you're allowed to continue, but if your HP is higher, then you get the bad ending where the sun cannon is fired and you're forced to disengage, aka game over. You don't get to save your high score. It's neat this specific possibility has an ending of its own. If, however, you manage to defeat Zegrat, then the machine you selected charges up a powerful final shot to launch into the core of the cannon, bringing this moon catastrophe to a close.
Mission complete. Virtual operation system interruption. Player data free.
And then, out there in space, the hero drifts on endlessly among the stars. There's a ton of thought put into more than just the gameplay itself to cement what it means to be within Virtual 1. The narrative really aims to blur the lines between reality and fiction, yet still has a pretty uplifting view of technology in its music, stages, and colorful cast of robots. Sega games back then had all kinds of small detail that one only starts to appreciate only after it's gone. The next game in the series will excel in one area but start to decrease in another.
Get ready.
The year is 1998. The Dreamcast is just released and Sega's on top of the world, baby! Naturally, with their arcade hit being a success, a sequel will follow. What if we made Virtual 1 but better? Somebody open a window! A common thought in developer meetings, but the question then becomes, how do we improve upon the gameplay, if it needs to be improved at all? There were a lot of avenues for the developers to take, including reworking the style of gameplay to suit a wider, casual audience. But instead, Sega chose the best course of action and doubled down on everything. This sequel ends with the pace of gameplay times 3, faster speed, more attacking, more jump cancelling, air dashing, and all of it reflects in Tim Jin's new design, sporting back thrusters and a smooth yellow added to his palette. Air movement is now on par with ground movement, and it's possible to safely air attack because you can fast fall right after. Rather than penalizing the way players played, Oratorio Tangram expands on the method of design, allowing your machine to cancel out of more action. Some defensive options were added, such as a shield that can deflect bullets at different ranges depending on the machine selected, meaning the problem of cross-map sniping was solved through expanding on the manner of which the cast interacts with each other. Quick stepping was added to avoid melee attacks and counter them better, and some characters were removed, replaced by a better counterpart. Now any hit can prove fatal since the game is so fast. Any mistake can spell an instant loss, like Third Strike. Because of the added depth to the game, Oratorio Tangram is often played competitively. However, the single-player arcade took a hit as a result, feeling more dull than its predecessor in presentation and design. It isn't as impactful, especially the final boss, which changes movement to be omnidirectional, making the challenge feel more like a gimmick afterthought. There is a special ending if you complete arcade mode with all characters without continuing, but with all special secrets, I'll leave it to you to find out, viewer. The game has home ports to the Dreamcast, Xbox, and PS4 in the Master Collection, and was updated between re-releases. The Dreamcast version is version 5.45, while Onwards is 5.66. There are slight differences between the versions, but the major change is the addition of 3 more characters. I was surprised to see that it still has an active and dedicated community still playing, mostly on the Japanese side, but there are still English players around. This game is also on Fightcade, which is the version I mainly played, as it seems more optimized for PC play, although it uses the Dreamcast version 5.4. This version allows you to play the previous arcade release, 5.2. It's nice to have a miniature complete collection of the game all in one, except they removed playing previous versions in version 5.66, likely because of the added characters and little reason to go backwards when there are little changes between Operation Moongate and this game. I recommend starting with this one as it has a much better handling, which makes it easier to grasp. It's very snappy like a fighting game, while the first game is sluggish in comparison, and reliant on learning more of the game's cancelling unattended by design. Oratorio Tangram became a wide success and set the standard for the 3D arena fighting genre, inspiring games such as Gundam vs. Zeta, Armored Core, Final Fantasy Dissidia, and many others. But where do we go from here? Continued in part 2. Wow guys, 1,000 subscribers. This is so unreal, guys. You guys are the greatest viewers in the entire world. I never would have been here without you guys. I'm putting together a special Q&A to celebrate. So head over to my community tab and ask me questions. It can be any question ranging from games to anything else that is on your mind. I just need questions. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and spread my videos for more content.